everybody. Well, like Steve said, today we're celebrating Palm Sunday, and it's a great honor to preach on any day, but it's particularly an honor to preach in reference to these beautiful things that Jesus did for us. And, like Steve said, this upcoming week, next week we'll celebrate the resurrection. Today we celebrate Jesus' triumphant march into Jerusalem, but we know that in between so much happened. The greatest sacrifice that's ever been made happened. It's not a celebration of Good Friday, but it's honoring Christ for what he did. And I want to go through this time in Jesus' life and up to his death. And I really just want to spend some time honoring Jesus. Hopefully we always do that, but I want to really focus our minds and our hearts and our souls on Jesus and what he went through. I know we can never completely understand or comprehend it, but he was a man, and he hurt and had emotions like we do, and I kind of want to go through that and really see and honor the sacrifice he made, not just on the cross, but leading up to that. I know that we can never really do it justice, but I'm hoping that we can just see it in a little bit more personal light. So often, we've read the story, we know it, we've had it told to us, we've watched it in movies, we've seen things, and so we know how it goes. But I really want to think about if we were there, because to them it wasn't a story. It wasn't something they looked back on or even looked forward to, even though they knew in the prophecies things that would happen. It was happening the same as like us sitting here. And as we go along, we'll see what the Spirit says. But I just want us to really keep that in mind, that to them it was happening the same as this is happening to us. Now, this is a simple time. We have a few people that are sick. We have some dramatic things going on, but we're in a peaceable time. We're blessed. We're in a building worshiping God and loving on each other. But imagine just as quickly if things started going south. What if all of a sudden one of you were placed where you were alone, everybody turned on you? How deeply that would hurt. But I want to look at some of those things as we go. So let's just get started. We're going to start, and we're going to go back over a little bit of last week's, and then we're going to roll into the new lesson. So let's start in Matthew 21, verses 1 through 11. As they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage in the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent two disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and at once you will find a donkey tied there, with her colt by her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, tell him that the Lord needs them, and he will send them right away." This took place to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet. "Say to the daughter of Zion, see, your king comes to you, gentle and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey." The disciples went and did as Jesus had instructed them. They brought the donkey and the colt, placed their cloaks on them, and Jesus sat on them. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds then went ahead of him, and those that followed shouted, "Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest." When Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred and asked, "Who is this?" The crowd answered, "This is Jesus the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee." So that's amazing as it is. Jesus, people are starting to recognize who he is, and he rolls into town, and now people honor him. But he comes gently. He comes in power, and he's fulfilling prophecy, but he comes gently. He doesn't come marching in, making demands, and telling everybody how it's going to be. He comes in riding on a donkey, and people are honoring him on the street. Verses 23 through 27, Jesus entered the temple courts, and while he was teaching, the chief priests and the elders of the people came to him. "By what authority are you doing these things?" they asked. "And who gave you this authority?" Jesus replied, "I will also ask you one question. If you answer me, I will tell you by what authority I'm doing these things. John's baptism, where did it come from? Was it from heaven or from man? They discussed it among themselves and said, if we say from heaven, he will ask them, why didn't you believe him? But if we say from men, we're afraid of the people, for they all hold that John was a prophet. So they answered Jesus, we don't know. Then he said, neither will I tell you by what authority I am doing these things. So right there we already see Jesus is coming to town, and this is a great affront to the people that are the leaders there. Now you would think that the people that are the leaders and are supposedly the godly men of the time would be thrilled that Jesus is there with the truth. And they would be looking for that. But it comes as an offense to them because he comes saying things that are contradictory to the way they're living, and also he comes as a threat to their power. So he comes in gentle and loving in authority and speaks that way, but the very people who have for generations been the ones that are supposed to honor God, that are supposed to be close to God, are supposed to know the way to God, immediately confront him. And Jesus goes on talking to them. What do you think? There was a man who had 2 sons. He went to the first and said, son, go and work today in the vineyard. I will not, he answered. But later he changed his mind and went. Then the father went to the other son and said the same thing. He answered, I will, sir, but he did not go. Which of the two did what his father wanted? The first, they answered. Jesus said to them, I tell you the truth. The tax collectors and the prostitutes are entering the kingdom of God ahead of you. For John came to you to show you the way of righteousness, and you did not believe him. But the tax collectors and the prostitutes did. And even after you saw this, you did not repent and believe him. So this had to be a bitter pill for them. And the way I've always read it, it's Jesus is kind of calling them out. And I see it that way. They question him, and then he says, hey, what about this? And so for them, not only are they said, they don't say that somebody else might be ahead of them in line, or, someone else might be doing a better job. They literally, he says, the people that they would consider the dredge of society are entering the kingdom of heaven before them. And this would have been offensive. And I always just looked at it that way, that Jesus is calling them out. And we know that they didn't respond well, but think of it, they could have responded well. Think back to how this was. Jesus is there telling them. We know Jesus' nature was kind and gentle. He was confronting them on these facts, but he was also presenting them with the truth. And at this point, if they'd wanted, if their hearts were really for the Lord, they could have said, thank you so much for showing us this. We're so sorry. Please show us what you want us to do. That was an option. And I've read this so often that I never really think of that. We know what happened, and we know that they're men, and so we think of them a certain way. They're prideful. But they could have responded that way. But they didn't choose to do that. And Jesus goes on. But we're going to pick up in verse 42. 42 through 46. Jesus said to them, have you never read in the scriptures, the stone the builders rejected has become the capstone. The Lord has done this, and it is marvelous in our eyes. Therefore, I tell you that the kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to a people who will produce fruit. He who falls on the stone will be broken to pieces. But he on whom it falls will be crushed. When the chief priests and the Pharisees heard Jesus' parable, they knew he was talking about them. They looked for a way to arrest him, but they were afraid of the crowd because the people held that he was a prophet. So again, Jesus presents to them, it's confrontational to them because it's in opposition to how they're living. But he's providing the truth, and they could have accepted it. But they chose not to. And they immediately began plotting what they can do about it. And the way they want to arrest him and get rid of him. We're going to move over to Matthew 22, verses 34 through 40. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with this question: "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments." So they're still testing him. You know, they're trying to find something that will undermine what he's saying. Even though he's saying clearly what they need to hear, and he's even presenting it to them that, hey, you need to hear this. They're still looking for a way to push that aside and continue on with their own agenda. They had the opportunity here. They could have submitted and repented, but their hearts weren't there. And Jesus goes on. While the Pharisees had gathered together, Jesus asked them, "What do you think about the Christ? Whose son is he?" "The son of David," they replied. He said to them, "How is it then that David, speaking by the Spirit, calls him Lord? For he says, 'The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I put your enemies under your feet.' If then David calls him Lord, how can he be his son?" No one could say a word in reply, and from that day on, no one dared to ask him any more questions. So that puts him in a bad spot. I mean, they're starting to see that he's the truth. So much so that they can't even question him, because they know that the answer they're going to get is going to be in opposition to what they want. And this is getting them more and more frustrated. So Jesus, the truth is just being revealed. I mean, this is a man. I mean, think of it. Again, if he was here, we wouldn't necessarily know he was the Son of God by some act of power. He wouldn't be shining, he wouldn't be, have a halo. He would be a man, and he would be speaking. But as he speaks, you recognize this is the truth. But the more you see the truth, the more the lies are obvious. And so the people that are living by those lies are becoming more and more offended. And so they put into effect what they're going to do. They're not going to sit idly by. They've decided not to repent. They're not looking to see, okay, well, if we're doing it wrong, what should we do? They're not looking to apologize. They're not looking to find the way. What they're looking for is how can they continue on with what they want and get rid of this guy who's a problem. Pick up in Matthew 26, verses 1 through 5. When Jesus had finished saying all these things, he said to his disciples, "As you know, the Passover is 2 days away, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified." Then the chief priests and the elders of the people assembled in the palace of the high priest, whose name was Caiaphas, and they plotted to arrest Jesus in some sly way and kill him. But not during the feast, they said, or there may be a riot among the people. So you see there, Jesus already recognizes what's going to happen, and he tells them that he's going to be crucified. And to me, that's astonishing, because he doesn't just say, they understand he's here and he's going to be sacrificed, and I'm sure he's been telling them this, and it's, I'm sure, very hard for his disciples to hear this. Again, just as if we were sitting here, they were people following him around, listening to what he was saying, and not grasping all of it, I'm sure, and trying to take it in and trying to think, well, what's that going to look like? And they're thinking, okay, he's going to be betrayed. But now he says flat out, he's going to be crucified. That had to be shocking. I mean, crucifixion is a horrible death and a horrible punishment. And there he's telling them flat out that's what's going to happen. And on the other side, the chief priests, who are supposed to be the godly men, the honorable men, the respectable men, they're not just looking for a way to undermine him. They want to arrest him, and they want to kill him. And it shows you their hearts. They're not looking for truth. They're not looking for how things should be. They're looking for what they want. skip over to verse 14 and 16 through 16. Then one of the 12, the one called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and asked, "What are you willing to give me if I hand him over to you?" So they counted out for him 30 silver coins. From then on, Judas watched for an opportunity to hand him over. Again, I'm not a well-studied guy. You know, there's been different opinions about Judas and what's happened and why, but I don't know that it ever says specifically. But think of it. He goes to them and asks, what will you give me? It doesn't say that he's got some particular problem with Jesus. It doesn't say that he was offended deeply because of whatever. So think of it. Think of one of us in here was in this same position. We don't live in a time, and none of us are in the position where that really would happen. But what if you were? The people you loved that were your friends, one of them went along to somebody else and said, "Hey, what do you give me if if we hose this guy?" I mean, think of the pain that this would cause Jesus. Just knowing that the people that he's walking with, the people that he's brought into his life on earth, that this is how it's going. But this is what Judas does. And then they go into the Lord's Supper. On the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Where do you want us to make preparations for you to eat the Passover?" He replied, "Go into the city to a certain man and tell him, 'The teacher says, my appointed time is near. I'm going to celebrate the Passover with my disciples at your house.' So the disciples did as Jesus directed them and prepared the Passover. When evening came, Jesus was reclining at the table with the 12. And while they were eating, he said, 'I tell you the truth, one of you will betray me.' They were very sad and began to say to him one after the other, 'Surely not I, Lord.' Jesus replied, 'The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man will go just as it is written about him. But woe to that man who betrays the Son of Man. It would be better for him if he had not been born.' Then Judas, the one who would betray him, said, 'Surely not I, Rabbi.' Jesus answered, 'Yes, it is you.' While they were eating, Jesus took the bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to his disciples, saying, 'Take and eat this. Take and eat. This is my body.' Then he took the cup, gave thanks, and offered it to them, saying, 'Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine from now on until the day when I drink it anew with you in my Father's kingdom.' When they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives." So here Jesus is sitting and reclining with them, and this is really Jesus' last time of comfort, his last time of relaxation, his last time of leisure, and he's spending time with his friends, honorably at the Passover. And again, I just kind of want to put us in that place. We had the memorial last week. We had potluck. They're sitting together. He's sitting here with the men that he loves. And in his heart, he knows that one will betray him. And how it must have felt to present that to them, and then they systematically say, "Well, not me," right? And he knows, I'm sure any of them are capable of that. Any of us are capable of as human beings. He recognizes how weak they are, and he responds when Judas asks. It says that it actually is him. So you can imagine how heavy Jesus' heart is starting to become, seeing where things are headed. Again, they don't really know it. I don't think they can comprehend it. Just like if we were having a party or we were all hanging out and all of a sudden one of us said, "Yeah, something really bad's going on." Like, it would be hard to grasp. Especially, leading to the greatest singular event in human history. They couldn't comprehend that. They were hanging out, like they're sitting here talking like we are. But Jesus, the pressure on Jesus is building. He's coming to town. He's really presented his ministry. And the leaders are starting to plot against him. Even his friends are starting to turn. The pressure is building on Jesus. Then Jesus told them, "This very night you will all fall away on account of me. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee." Peter replied, "Even if all fall away on account of you, I never will." "I tell you the truth," Jesus answered, "this very night before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. But Peter declared, "Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you." And all the other disciples said the same. So to them, they're still living in the idea of what they want to happen and how it's going to happen. And when when Peter says that to Jesus, I'm sure that he means it. I'm sure that in his heart, that's what he feels like. But Jesus, being God and understanding humans, knows that's really, and knowing what's going to happen, that's really Peter speaking in pride, not in love. I will never do that. I'm not going to do that. I'll be with you. But again, Jesus, as it's going, Jesus is becoming more and more separated. He's being sifted out. The perfect sacrifice is being separated from everything else. Then Jesus went to his disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." Going a little further, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. "Could you men not keep watch with me for 1 hour?" he asked. "Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the body is weak." He went away a second time and prayed, "My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done." When he came back, he again found them sleeping, because their eyes were heavy. So he left them and went away once more and prayed the 3rd time, saying the same thing. Then he returned to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour is near, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer." So this is Jesus going, again, with his men, his friends, and he's going to the Lord. And he openly says, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death." I don't know that any of us can comprehend that. I think that each of us have had moments, I've seen us go through moments where our souls were overwhelmed with sorrow. Possibly we felt to the point of death. But as I recall, that would always be from something that had already happened to us. Something we were mourning over. Something that had hurt so bad that it made us feel that way. Not knowing something that's going to happen. So the idea that this is coming, Jesus, this is Jesus who's walked a perfect life through this world, is feeling this and knows that he doesn't have to follow through with this if he chooses not to. His soul is not sorrowful to the point of death because something already happened and now he's sad. He still has an out. If he chooses, it's an out. He could take it. But he's refusing that because of his love for us. But I think it's hard for us to grasp that. And it's just something that as I was praying and as I was going through the scriptures, it really stuck out to me that this is something he's sorrowful about because of what he knows is going to happen. And I think most of us, when we get to the point where we're that sorrowful and it's something we can change, most of us would change it. But thankfully, Jesus' heart was not with himself, it was with us. Let's continue. While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd, armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them. The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him. Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus replied, "Friend, do what you came for." Then the men stepped forward, seized Jesus, and arrested him. With that, one of Jesus' companions reached for his sword, drew it out, and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. "Put your sword back in its place," Jesus said to them. "For all who draw the sword will die by the sword. Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled that say it must happen this way?" At that time, Jesus said to the crowd, "Am I leading a rebellion that you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I sat in the temple courts teaching, and you did not arrest me. But this has all taken place that the writings of the prophets might be fulfilled." Then all the disciples deserted him and fled. So Jesus acknowledges there that he doesn't have to go through this. He could change all this in an instant. But he refuses to go against the will of God. And then he makes a point that he's the same person, because we see how momentum gets. You know, we live in a very volatile time, very uneasy, very hateful time. We can see how quickly people turn on one another. You know, we see it politically, we see it, you know, through the media, all these things where one moment someone that you're happy with, the next they're ready to kill them. You know, all happens that quickly. And it's happening to Jesus. But again, it's happening in real time, and it's not a story that just gets told. He's living through this. There he is. You know, he's with his people. He's being separated. They're starting to abandon him. Now, the leaders, the people he came to teach, the people he came to confront, they're turning. And he's being left more and more and more alone. And he reminds them, I'm the same guy that's been here preaching God's love, preaching God's truth. I didn't come and disrupt things. He was here this whole time. And I think for them, it's that mob mentality. It'd be easy for them to forget it. And they still do. They don't care. They grab him and they take him along with what they want. But this is an acknowledgement. This is a man of peace who came and taught God's will. And they still refuse to accept that. Let's go on. Those who had arrested Jesus took him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the teachers of the law and the elders had assembled. But Peter followed him at a distance, right up to the courtyard of the high priest. He entered and sat down with the guards to see the outcome. The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for false evidence against Jesus so that they could put him to death. But they did not find any, though many false witnesses came forward. Finally, 2 came forward and declared, This fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days. Then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus, Are you not going to answer? What is this testimony that these men are bringing against you? But Jesus remained silent. The high priest said to him, I charge you under oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God. Yes, it is as you say, Jesus replied. But I say to all of you, in the future you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, He has spoken blasphemy. Why do we need any more witnesses? Look now, you have heard the blasphemy. What do you think? He is worthy of death, they answered. Then they spit in his face, struck him with their fists. Others slapped him and said, Prophesy to us, Christ. Who hit you? So again, Jesus comes in, just like in front of a group of people, and they can't present any evidence against him because he lived a perfect life. He is the truth. But they're still trying. And what they finally tie him up with is that he told them the truth, and they can't accept that. So they see it as blasphemy because they cannot believe that it's the truth, but it is. And in that, it reveals Jesus' heart. He's the truth. He's always and only speaks the truth. But then you see how they respond. They didn't just accuse him and convict him and send him to be punished. As soon as it happens, they spit in his face and struck him with their fist. Others slapped him and said, "Prophesy to us, Christ, who hit you?" So they didn't just undermine him. The hate that was in their hearts spills out, and they begin physically beating him and spitting on him and mocking him. I mean, if there's any question that these are righteous men trying to do the right thing, it kind of goes out the window at that point. You know, there's an honorable way to discipline someone if they deserve discipline. So even if they believe that was the case, and even if they believe death was the sentence, it didn't have to go this way. Now Peter was sitting out in the courtyard, and the servant girl came to him. "You also were with Jesus of Galilee," that she said, but he denied it before them all. "Don't you know what he was talking? I don't know what you're talking about," he said. Then he went out to the gateway where another girl saw him and said to the people there, "This fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth." He denied it again with an oath. "I don't know the man." After a little while, those standing there went up to Peter and said, "Surely you're one of them. Your accent gives you away." Then he began to call down curses on himself, and he swore to them, "I don't know the man." Immediately a rooster crowed. Then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken. "Before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times." And he went outside and wept bitterly. So one of Jesus' closest followers denies him. Early in the morning, all the chief priests and the elders of the people came to the decision to put Jesus to death. They bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate, the governor. When Judas, who had betrayed him, saw that Jesus was condemned, he was seized with remorse and returned the 30 silver coins to the chief priests and the elders. "I have sinned," he said, "for I have betrayed innocent blood." "What is that to us?" they replied. "That's your responsibility." So Judas threw the money into the temple and left. Then he went away and hanged himself. The chief priest picked up the coins and said, "It is against the law to put this money into the treasury, since it is blood money." So they decided to use the money to buy the potter's field, a burial place for foreigners. That is why it has been called the Field of Blood to this day. Then what was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled. They took the 30 silver coins, the price set on him by the people of Israel, and they used them to buy the potter's field as the Lord commanded me. So here, Judas goes and acknowledges that he's betrayed an innocent man, and they don't care. So not only at this point are they in defiance of Jesus, they're out and out lying, and they know it. They know that he's been lied against. They know that he's innocent, but they don't care. "I have sinned," he said, "for I betrayed innocent blood." "What is that to us?" they replied. "That's your responsibility." So they don't care that they know that he's right. They don't care that he's innocent. And again, it just shows you where their hearts are. They just want him out of the way. They just want to get things the way they want them. And so they do. Meanwhile, Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Yes, it is as you say," Jesus replied. When he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate asked him, "Don't you hear the testimony that they are bringing against you?" But Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. Now it was the governor's custom at the feast to release a prisoner chosen by the crowd. At that time, they had a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. So when the crowd had gathered, Pilate asked them, "Which one do you want me to release to you, Barabbas or Jesus, who who is called Christ. For he knew it was out of envy that they had handed Jesus over to him. While Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent him this message: "Don't have anything to do with that innocent man, for I have suffered a great deal today in a dream because of him." But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas, and to have Jesus executed. "Which of the two do you want me to release to you?" asked the governor. "Barabbas," they answered. "What shall I do then with this Jesus who is called the Christ?" Pilate asked. They all answered, "Crucify him." "Why? What crime has he committed?" asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him." When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd. "I am innocent of this man's blood," he said. "It is your responsibility." All the people answered, "Let his blood be on us and on our children." Then he released Barabbas to them, but he had Jesus flogged and handed over to him to be crucified. So again, Jesus is being separated even further. The Israelites, who he's come to fulfill all the prophecies, they stand and they specifically say, his blood is on our hands. He rode in glory not that long before, and now they're ready to string him up. His own people, the people that he's come and honored, he's lifted up, he's taught, and they're ready to kill him. Then the governor's soldiers took Jesus into the praetorium and gathered the whole company of soldiers around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and then twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on his head. They put a staff in his right hand and knelt in front of him and mocked him. "Hail, King of the Jews," they said. They spit on him, took the staff, and struck him on the head again and again. After they had mocked him, they took off the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. Again, this is more examples of the difference between the heart of Christ and the heart of men. These men didn't have to punish him this way. The death he was going to suffer was going to be bad enough. But what does the heart of man do? It's so prideful and arrogant and disgusting that they beat him over and over, and they spit on him. And imagine, again, I want us to just think, like, this physically happened. Imagine right now, even if we were in that position, and I'm a law enforcement officer, so I'm in positions that aren't always pretty, and when things physically happen, it's hard and difficult. But imagine you're watching this happen, and there's a point, this man, now, he's defenseless. He's not presenting a fight against them. He's presenting himself as a sacrifice. And they beat him repeatedly and spit on him. You would think that by that point, you would think, okay, let's just get this over with. No. They get in his face and they mock him. And it just shows you how dark the human heart can be when we don't contain our own sin. And when we allow our flesh to rise up against God, as this was actually happening, it will be ugly and terrible. And Jesus doesn't offer any defense. As they were going out, they met a man from Cyrene named Simon, and they forced him to carry the cross. They came to a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. There they offered Jesus wine to drink mixed with gall. But after tasting it, he refused to drink. When they had crucified him, they divided up his clothes by casting lots. And sitting down, they kept watch over him. Above his head, they placed the written charge against him. "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." 2 robbers who were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by hurled insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, You who are going to destroy the temple and build it up in 3 days, save yourself. Come down from the cross if you're the Son of God." In the same way, the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the elites mocked him. "He saved others," they said, "but he can't save himself. He's the King of Israel. Let him come down from the cross, and we will believe him. He trusts in God. Let God rescue him now if he wants him. For he said, 'I am the Son of God.'" In the same way, the robbers who were crucified with him also heaped insults on him. Again, this is Jesus who lived a perfect life. They didn't see him living a perfect life, but let's just say we know he never committed violence. He never did anything to hurt anyone. They know, just even historically, none of that occurred. He's a man at worst, if you don't believe anything else about him, walked through life trying to teach people to behave better, to be closer to God, and to love one another. And these men who are studied in the law, who are the experts in the commandments, who are the teachers, they come against him so aggressively that just in this example, you can see. Let's say you didn't know anything else. Let's say that we're going to hear this story. There's a man who claimed this. We don't really know. There's these people. Just based on their behavior, who would you want to follow? To me, it's just so beautiful to see that Jesus is the Christ. The very things they're doing to disprove him is just reinforcing the fact that he is the Christ. From the 6th hour until the 9th hour, darkness came over the land. About the 9th hour, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani? My God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of those standing there heard this, they said, "He's calling Elijah." Immediately, one of them ran and got a sponge, filled it with vinegar, put it on a stick, and offered it to Jesus to drink. The rest said, "Now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to save him." And when Jesus had cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook and the rocks split. The tombs broke open. The bodies of many holy people who had died were raised to life. They came out of the tombs, and after Jesus' resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many people. When the centurion and those with him who were guarding Jesus saw the earthquake and all that had happened, they were terrified and exclaimed, "Surely he was the Son of God." Let's have the worship team come up and let's spend some time praising him.